In this episode, I'm talking with Paul Mosenson, Chief Marketing Officer of New Spark Media Group, about his journey from buying ad space during the golden age of TV and radio to the web, social media, and now the age of AI. We explore the constants in marketing, the things that do not change with each new technology cycle. We talk about how AI and agents are reshaping the way we engage with audiences, and why, at the heart of marketing, is still personal connection and compelling storytelling. We also demo some great GPTs that can help you from overcoming sales objections to refining your message so that it resonates with your target audience. You won't want to miss this blend of history, insight, and actionable strategies that can completely change your approach to marketing. Well, welcome to the show, Paul. It's great to have you. I really wanted to chat with you because you have a lot of experience in marketing, but also too, you've been creating lots of GPTs and using AI heavily in your business. But before we get into kind of AI, you've had 35 years experience in marketing. How has it evolved since 1984?
Well, there's obviously a lot less channels to pick from, right? We had 6 TV stations and a few radio stations. We had newspaper, a morning and an evening paper. Again, this is how I grew up, right? So there was a lot more attention to those mediums. But at the end of the day, I think the basics of advertising and media really haven't changed. And I say that because even though there's a lot more competition now, the basics of marketing are still there, which is target marketing, target the right people wherever they are, and the message to grab someone's attention is always there. Grab my attention. I always like to use any marketing back then and today is an old Robert De Niro saying from Taxi Driver, which was the slogan is, "You talking to me? You talking to me?" I don't know if anybody remembers that. They can look that up.
So you're talking to me?
On YouTube, whatever. But that's still the basic of marketing that's consistent, which is anything. You're talking to me. Can you solve my business problem? And you have an offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's direct response at its best. Now, again, like I said, it's things have changed so much. Now, I remember going through, just for the sake of conversation, for anybody out there who may be a little bit older in their 50s and started in the marketing business, and they were getting trade magazines in the mail. Did I get plant engineering this week? That kind of thing, where they had ads, and instead of QR codes, they called BRC cards. Well, over time, obviously, there were so many different search engines that came out. Probably, let's fast forward to like the mid 90s. I remember something called Pointcast. We had, Blackberries were coming out. So we started getting into mobile websites. Obviously websites back then were pretty basic. We didn't know what WordPress was. We had to hire developers, Joomla, Drupal, and other things like that. Obviously, I remember all the search engines that came out, I guess, late 90s. Ask Jeeves, GoTo, Excite, Lycos, Alta Vista, Ask Jeeves, all these, Yahoo, right? I mean, who remembers, we had the early days of Yahoo was so big. Yahoo, AOL, of course. Now, remember back then, we had to pay for internet 20 hours a month. Johnny, we're almost done our monthly. You better get off because we're only paying for that. And then we had then this first social media network I remember came out in the mid 90s. We were all trying to figure it out, called MySpace. And it's like, oh, this is pretty cool. I have my own little website that's personal for me with lots of fancy colors and images. And I could chat with people. And I remember there was an ad platform I actually bought back in the day, probably at Borders Bookstore, if you know what that is. MySpace for Dummies. Okay. So back then, there was a big thing. Everything was for dummies. I need a dummies book, right? So MySpace, and for clients actually in the I guess it was the early 2000s, I was working in Delaware for the Division of Public Health and Office of Highway Safety and companies like that. We need to advertise for young people. I bought ads on MySpace, right? There was really no analytics or anything, but we bought it, and so that and AOL ads and things like that. But these are like the early days, and then we started reading about this thing called Facebook, right? That was in colleges. Now I don't remember if that was before or after GoTo.com became Google, but they probably did and took over the world. But and all those other guys like Spy, Excite, no, Ask Jeeves, I
Yeah.
remember him, But anyway, they all gone. But you can
Alta
still,
Vista was my go-to search engine back in the day. I do remember my best friends was trying to get me at the time onto Facebook, and my response was, "Do you really think they can overtake MySpace? I mean, come on, everyone's already on MySpace."
yeah, right,
Little did I know that that was not everyone. Facebook now
right.
pretty much has everyone.
Well, mostly, yeah. But you'll be surprised, when you go through your high school yearbook and you say, like, whatever happened to John? He's got to be somewhere. He's not on Facebook. He's not on LinkedIn. He doesn't exist, right? But switchboard.com, maybe, all those other old sites, back in.
GeoCities.
Right, right. Oh, heck, we used to get like the yellow pages, on the front lawn. That was another advertising strategy back then. Actually, was the first search engine was the yellow pages.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that, because you talk about how the fundamentals has not changed in marketing. Just the tools that we use have changed. What from the basics of trying to figure out, do I spend my budget in the yellow pages, what that copy looks like versus, television versus radio versus newspaper publications. You had very limited mediums to be able to choose from. So how did you go about creating those personas? And is it easier or harder now?
Well, it is harder because it's so dispersed. Back then, I mean, to be honest, they're still out there. We used to have, obviously radio ratings, Arbitron, which Nielsen bought, and Nielsen still exists. And, they still have households with diaries, believe it or not. I mean, more it's electronic now, but that's how they still do it, is surveys. So, and then they have enough so they can look at all the demographics of the TV shows, right? Those basics really haven't changed. I mean, there's a lot more, intricacies, but that still exists. ComScore, things like that. But I guess to answer your question, I mean, we're talking about those other channels. You're relying on the reps data based on surveys and things like that. You talk about marketing and advertising. It still today is advertising is necessary evil, but we live to avoid it. When you think about it, we don't look forward to seeing ads. Maybe the Super Bowl, but other than that, though, it's a battle to get someone's attention, but that's really where you come with the messaging part of it with creative directors and old companies and things like that. Is what can we do to interrupt somebody in their daily lives to say you might want this, right? Versus
Mm-hmm.
actually going out looking for it yourself. I mean, that's inbound. That's a whole different story. We're talking about in B2B, it's called demand generation, but it's really about attracting people to do something before they're ready. That's how I identify marketing, right? And so the message has to be, oh, this is interesting, because you're trying to target, best you can, no matter what channel you're using. And then after you, I kind of make fun with people. I say, made you click. We made you click. But that's an important message. We talk about the metrics you look at right now today is click-through rate first. Google click-through
Mm-hmm.
rate, Facebook what's a click-through rate? I'm doing a buys right now, and these reps don't know. I mean, I'm so much into conversions, right? But you'll get messages like, "Oh, your click-through rate is higher than average. That means your campaigns are doing well." You think? I'm kind of like a little, funny on that, right? Because maybe the message is really good, but maybe our landing page or maybe something is causing extra clicks and just, get this ad out of the way.
Hmm.
That's why I don't even like ads on mobile apps, right? I always tell people I don't want mobile app ads because I think people don't, they're busy doing something, right? And so,
Hmm.
I think I'll stop words with friends and click on this ad. I don't think that's really, I mean,
Yeah.
sorry, we're gonna take a break. I need to click on an ad. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Save the game. But I'm a little tongue in cheek that way, But
Yeah.
but the point though is, we're marketing. No matter how you look at it, and we'll get to the AI and how that fits in, is grab my like I always say, like, no matter how good your website is or your landing pages and everything, said look at the great stuff. No one sees that yet except for two things: an ad headline or an email subject line. You can never take that for granted. That's the first step to attract people to, interesting, made you open, made you click, right? And then when that happens, then the next message comes in, right? It's
Yeah.
kind of like, when you're, what do I call, like, window shopping at the mall. Oh, wow, look at this great looking suit. Made you come in the store. Oh, wait, this stuff is too expensive and they don't have as much selection. So I'm going to leave, right? So I didn't get
Hmm.
the conversion, right? So,
Yeah. The
uh,
conversion. Exactly. That's why you brought up a really good point earlier about with conversion rate optimization. So, for instance, like, yeah, your click through rate is better, but did the actual end goal, uh, you know, did you achieve that goal? When I was working at Optimizely, it would be like, yeah, you could put,
oh, yeah, right.
free puppies on your web page and really boost those numbers. But then if people get there and realize, oh, it's not really, free puppies, it's, you have to pay to adopt them and all that stuff, you're probably going to hurt your conversion rate. So that's a really good point to put up there. But
Well,
yeah.
that's a big thing I talk about on my website. Back in the day, it was like, oh, we do everything. We're an interactive marketing company, right? How do you know to do everything, right? I mean, I always like, listen, I could love them or hate them, but SEO companies, right? I don't care what rank I'm at. If my message doesn't make me click and my website doesn't convert, then I just wasted money.
Yeah. One of the easiest tools that we always saw lift in conversion was symmetric messaging, where we would essentially have the exact same messaging on the landing page that they clicked to. So
Okay.
just updating the text from the UTM params, because having that consistency. Hey, a good example was we would sell it as A/B testing or experimentation platform, right? Well, if you came to the landing page from the A/B testing ad, well, it said everything A/B testing and vice versa. So that's one of having that consistency in messaging from both the click through rate and the conversion is great advice.
Yeah, well, I call it, like, it's full funnel marketing, or however you want to define it. I mean, everything is. When I started my business in 2010, my first slogan I was thinking about was follow the lead from click to close, right? And it's still similar today. Buyer's journey optimization, no matter how you look at it, is you're attracting people, but then engage them and persuade them to give up their email address. That's what we're doing.
Absolutely. And I think I would add even one more to that,
Sure.
not just from lead to close, but also to expand. One of the things that we found was, once you've, it's easier to mine gold in the hills you've already prospected instead of going out and prospecting new gold fields. So, yeah, how do you expand those with more business, more opportunity?
Well, there's always that, the extra factor of, okay, it's like referral marketing and viral marketing and word of mouth and all those kinds of things. They're all little things, but one of the things again, I'm doing a lot of cliches when I talk to clients, and it's a lot of the phrases I'll say to you is little things mean a lot. Little things mean a lot. Think about it. And I make somebody feel guilty sometimes, and this is kind of an important message. Makes us It makes a salesperson or a CEO feel like, maybe we should look at that further, which is basically, what if your average, when you start going to an average customer value or CAC, however you want to call it, what they're worth, and then you add the lifetime value to it. So let's say a lifetime value average of a client is 5 years, and let's just say it's worth $100,000 or more. And that person wasn't totally convinced to sign up and went with a competitor. How would you feel? How would you feel? You don't have to have an answer, but the concept is do everything you can to engage that person because we don't want them going anyplace else.
Yeah. Yeah. Once they've gone to a competitor, it's like, that's it. It's kind of like losing, losing a relationship or something. Like you didn't take that chance. You didn't do everything that you
Right.
really could have done to
Okay.
secure that partnership.
Right. Right. Okay. I'm sorry you're allergic to cats, but I have a lot to offer.
Yeah, without
Yeah.
sounding desperate. Exactly. Yeah.
I'm a nice person. Is it the cat? Is it really the cat? So,
It's not you, it's me. Yeah. So tell me, so, we're now in this new era that, you know, AI has definitely been around, but let's face it, last year has been pretty crazy, especially in the world of marketing. We've all seen the marketing copy, delve realm, all the cliche words that it keeps popping out. What was your aha moment when you just, do you remember it very clearly when you were like, this is going to change and this is the future?
so it actually, I was always interested in the topic, but early on with actually two clients that they used me as a fractional CMO, and we were trying to come up with a effective, low cost way to generate leads. And I said, this is chat three or whatever they called it. I don't know if there was a two or not, but I don't remember if there was a 1.5, but whatever it was at the tool, I was playing with it. I said, this actually does a pretty good job of writing up content. So what I did was experimented. I showed him an example of a few pages of some Q&A. I just asked it questions about, like I give one, for example, like robotic process automation. They sold that to accounting departments. And I said, so chat, like, why does, why do accounting departments have so many problems with accuracy and errors and being efficient, those kinds of things, efficiency? And it gave me like 7 or 8 different answers. I said, wow. So then I said in my example, oh, that's really good stuff. Just like that. So I said, okay, so if my client sold robotic automation for their accounting departments, how would it solve all those issues? And then it gave me really good answers to those things. So they gave me clues to website, because you always go feature to benefit outcome, and then said we can make an ebook out of this for lead gen. And then so we just said let's do it, and that was the first one. Was we put it out in the marketplace, got plenty of leads. We did content networks targeted people in manufacturing and CFO titles, and they were interested in the topic. And then we started doing follow-ups with their SDR and also some chat GPT follow-up messages. So that I managed, right? So again, early on, I kind of knew that this was an idea tool that actually had pretty good responses. That meant that, I mean, because before that with other B2B clients, I've used freelance writing networks, and I became friends with some of the people in a way. She was my go-to writer for other projects, and I haven't used her, but I think that speaks to what's going on today with the angst of, long form content writers. If you decide you want to, let's just use the word, be more strategic with your marketing spend, right? And use those tools. As long as clients approve them, they tweak them. Like any content writer, here it is for approval. It's the same thing. Here it is for approval, and we tweak it. We put some our own branding in it, and then it says, okay, let's get it designed.
Yeah. I think, it's interesting you say you asked it, give me 7 ideas or, give me multiple items. I think it's very interesting when I see people use AI. Some people just want the answer. Like they're just like, hey, just give me the like right one. But I use it much similar to you is like, give me a bunch of ideas. I'll figure out which ones are good or not. And some of them are pretty bad, some of them are amazing, like I never would have even thought of it, and then
Right,
some are
right.
just right down the a majority of them are just basic advice, but you get those nuggets on when asking it to brainstorm for you. So you created a white paper, that was one of the very first things that you how is it now enhanced? You talk about haven't really needed to use your freelance writer. How is it kind of, well, two things. One, how is it like, how is that evolved with your content creation? And also two, like there is still, how do you keep that emotional connection in marketing and make sure that it still does have that less robotic feeling?
Well, I think it all depends on the client you're dealing with and how much they wanted to get away with it, right? But I think, for everybody out there, you still should have a good brand or creative director to oversee those things because you have a brand voice, right? That's what I'm saying. This is not replacing that. You need to, these are all, if a company says this sounds good to me, it's really good copy because back then people didn't really know. I mean, maybe delve was a good word, but
Apparently, it's been trained on a lot of it.
well, I go to just for a sidebar. I read something good in Forbes. I open it up, said in the evolving landscape. I said, oh, that's not you. But geez. Anyway, but the point though is, you know, it's almost like a brand, a color palette or font size. I mean, do you have a brand voice? Does that come through with this? How important is that to you versus just getting the material out because you've already got their email address and then you're going to write good follow up messages that, can sound like you as long as you have prompt the right tone, conversational, informative. I mean, all those kinds of things we'll try to work with the tool on for the tool to see how it, talks about your voice. Now I have, of course on my side I have, templates that will give you ideas of what kind of tone you would like. I mean, that's getting into the weeds, but again, it's still about how, with any of the tools that are out there, uh, does this sound like you? How do you make it sound like you more? What style would you like it? It's not going to be perfect, but I mean, as a brand, do you prefer to be conversational or straight laced, right? Because that'll affect everything else you have. I mean, if your website's written as, more, say, casual, then maybe that's the tone you prefer, and give a lot of analogies versus number one, number two, number three, that's anybody could do, right? So that again, that's where the power of the prompt comes in, and using the tool to see whether it needs more direction from a copywriter to take this and now make it to the voice that because it doesn't the AI doesn't really know your brand voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your company does, right? So that's where I mean it'll evolve. I know it will, but for now, I mean, I think that's the only thing it's missing is how do you want to make it represent your company versus you're happy with the style it wrote. That's a
Mm-hmm.
business decision, really.
And there's some blending, I think, too, between, because, companies put out their brand voice, but there's always the voice of the writer who's actually writing it that's kind of blended with it.
Yeah,
What's
sure,
interest
sure.
What's interesting to me is that, kind of going back to your, you talking to me,
Oh yeah.
with the ability to, when the cost of writing it becomes so cheap, does it makes sense that instead of having a company brand voice that we end up just talking in the voice that the customer wants to hear as opposed to the voice we want to portray?
Well, it's a good point, and actually, I'll explain a scenario that's on my website, newsparkmediagroup.com. Is let me explain it this way. At the end of the day, we want buyers, if we're talking B2B here, to know that we get them. We understand your problems. We researched it. We quote, um, or based on client experience, or maybe the tools like we mentioned before about these ideas. But if we understand their pain points and we communicate our solution to it, right? No matter, it may not make a difference about any kind of voice brand strategy, but um, I think you have to see what shakes out at the end, if that makes sense. So let me give you an example. It's on the website, as I mentioned, is a scenario. So again, this is just based on my experience, but it's again, your results may vary, just like weight loss companies. I put that on my website, by the way, when I did a scenario. So I'm going to try to explain. Let's just say in the old days of 2022, we get, like I mentioned, a white paper done, say a 10, 12 page white paper, 15, whatever. And we use a content writer. Now, it could be a freelance, or maybe you outsource it to somebody and they charge, I've seen this with my old writer in the old days, say for $4,000. Then you're going to get a design by, your production team, even if it's a small business, maybe a couple $1,000. So you just spent $6,000 on a white paper, but you're not sure because you spent a lot of money. You wanted to strategically target. I mean, it depends on the situation. Let's just say you're targeting something that can fit all your audiences, right? Because that's the scale you have. So you send it out, you advertise it on search or whatever it is, or your website, you have a guide. Okay, you want to generate leads from it. And you spend, say your media budget over 3 months is $9,000. So your total budget is $15,000. That's what you gave me, or whatever it is. So let's just say content design was 6,000. 6,000 out of your 15 is design, and 9,000 is media. Now let's just say you turn things around and you save that money, except for maybe a Fiverr designer like I've used, and let's just say you're spending $2,000 on creative or less, and you're going to build 3 white papers for one, because you're not spending on the content, and you still have a $15,000 budget. Now instead of 9 and 6, you're spending 13 and 2. Okay, so out of that $13,000, you're now spending 4, and then you're also getting 3 white papers done with 3 specific audiences. So now we're personalizing the messaging, and we're also going to personalize the funnel. So that's what I try to get at, is now you're targeting different industries or titles in your ICP, where all at one time instead of waiting one at a time. I guess it depends on the budget. It's just a scenario, right? But now so that's one scenario is, okay, if your cost per lead is the same and you're spending more in media, you're going to get more leads for the budget. Okay.
Yeah.
Now let's say, because it's personalized and it's very targeted now, you might get a higher click-through rate and conversion rate, which means your cost per, again, this scenario, because it's targeted, your landing pages are very much targeted now to each industry and title instead of generic. And now your cost per lead is going to actually reduce, because you're going to get more leads because you're talking to me instead of talking to anybody. Okay. So you can do the math and say, okay, well, now we're going to get even more leads because it's personalized. So I hope that makes sense. So with the same budget, you're writing 3 white papers instead of 1, and your target, this is an example, and you're targeting 3 different categories. Let's say healthcare, retail, and whatever other industry with its own needs. And ChatGPT will give specific pain points for those industries or for those job titles. So you can customize these things instead of doing one at a time. And guess what? That's the message I'm giving, is now you can, scale growth fast, and there'll be more quality because they're personalized. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I mean, this is the number one thing that makes companies successful is, how many, experiments, how quickly can you find out what doesn't work, right?
Right,
Because in
right.
marketing, a lot of it doesn't work. And, that cycle, spending 15,000 targeted to one persona has been a cycle that we've seen for a long time. Being able to now say, okay, here are my three, highly targeted white papers. I'm going to try a little bit of budget on these, see if it works on any of those, for the higher conversion, maybe devote more budget towards, or if none of them are getting higher than average, higher than baseline, then the cost to create a fourth persona, pretty cheap.
Yeah, yeah. Well, here's another thing to your point. Let's say I take that same budget, $13,000 now, and I realize that maybe one of the audiences, maybe the message is off, right? Even though we did the research. Hey, let's quickly stop that campaign, out, save that money and try another one. And we can build that, say, within a week. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But here's another pain point that might attract them more. Let's get that one out there. And the
Mm-hmm.
other one may not as work as well. Maybe it'll take 2 weeks, build a landing page for it, whatever. Back, in the old days, okay, let's wait 2 months. No, let's wait 2 weeks.
Right.
Or you could say, let's not target that audience now. We're not getting high conversions, but let's now reallocate the budget toward the campaigns that are working, right?
Yeah.
Because we're running multiple ones and we can make that decision.
Absolutely. I think that you touched on a really important point, which is just, you know, what the ability to personalize these things is not a new thing, but one of the biggest bottlenecks to personalization was the sheer amount of content that needed to be created, which is now quickly going down to zero. Because if you were personalizing on just two different vectors, right? So maybe it's industry and job title. Well, that's depending on how many you have, that's a lot of different permutations. The more you get, so.
Right. And it's amazing. That's the point of the personalization. Every industry and job title has their own pain points that you could solve, but it's personalized based on their need.
Yeah. So you have some GPTs that you could show us that you're probably one of the only people that I've met that's made more GPTs than I have. You have a ton of them in the store, and you're talking about kind of how you're using this. Yeah, I'd love to just have you walk through a couple of the GPTs that you've been using that's been getting you a lot of value.
Okay. Yeah. Well, there's I don't know where to start, but let me think about. Oh, that's right. We're doing video here. Well, I think what I'm going to do is, what are the ones I like the best are the ones I make matrices of. They're more recent one. I realize that it could when I talk about a matrix. So now it's easier to read than just copy. Now, the way I did it, instead of going through chat, I mean, I have all the icons on my website, so, and I just kind of like, I tried to make, Canva, who's my other best friend. I'm not totally alone. I have Canva, I have chat, and Divi theme templates and all those things. But but you look.
No, it's good. It's hard to see them in the store. I did something similar on my own website to kind of just for my own personal, like, because the UI isn't that great to get to your own GPTs sometimes.
Well, this is a matrix maker based on a business, a B2B business. So I'm gonna this says, again, it's how you customize them. A matrix maker covering target pain points. Going to give me some ad headlines that target clicks and sample ebook titles for planning, 15 at a time. Then if you want, you can go deeper with 10 more. Okay. So let's just say, let's go back to that example of, I'll just use the RPA AP automation software and I'm just going to prompt in the title, which is CFOs at manufacturing. The beauty of these tools is I can misspell, they can figure it out. So
yeah, I know, right? Like that's the
because I type so fast here.
I don't know what that does to my spelling because I've just not even bothered.
So I said to the thing, I want a matrix for copy and paste. That's how I did and then just give me like 10 rows and 5 columns. So what I did was just like that. If you could see the screen, let me know if I need to
Mm-hmm.
zoom in for your thing. But the pain point theme that CFOs have in manufacturing, a little more info on it. Again, this is just high level right now. And I use a display headline and a sub headline, whether it's for paid search, landing page, email, that kind of thing. And then based on that pain point, a sample titles, ebook title. And
This is amazing.
so it just gives you that ideation of should we, because each one can actually be its own ebook, and then you start building follow-up emails based on these problems, and then I have other GPTs that'll really give you the solutions as well. Again, it's for ideation, but it'll help you do those kinds of things.
Yeah. How many ideas do you have it tell? Because I see it just generating
It's
more
supposed
and
to.
more ideas.
I know it's supposed to stop at 15.
15.
Okay,
Okay.
I think it's almost
Yeah.
done. And so you'll see.
The
Go ahead.
the differences, I think this is, you know, I do the same thing, which just, give me a ton of ideas. Some of them are repetitive, but this is a really good prompting technique.
Yeah. So that's called Make Me Click. Now, if I wanted to, I can go back and I'm just going to copy this and go further here. Even the spelling error, folks, is Make Me Click and Convert. Let's just see what this one does, right? Because we're always talking about conversion. Build a 12-row, 4-column matrix covering message themes to drive clicks and conversion themes to drive more leads or sales. So let's do the same matrix here. Click theme, more info, convert theme. Now, they don't have to all go together, but what we're doing here is we're giving messages that would make people click, and then on a website, some follow-up messaging to complement that click.
The symmetric messaging, which we talked about earlier. Yeah, to kind of have that same messaging between the ad and the email and the landing page.
Yeah. So, I mean, I didn't pick up the matrices till just because where I figured it out was I was using Google Bard Gemini, and I wanted to do a chart. I noticed it did charts, and I said, well, I wonder if ChatGPT can do charts. And lo and behold, because
Wow.
what happens is like on my website or whatever, for just some of the things I do is I actually take my mouse and like I copy and paste it and then put it on a Canva template, and then I put colors on it, and I have a really nice chart to show a client, versus just something like this. Believe it or not, it actually, when you copy this, it actually copies the chart, the lines and, all that stuff. So it's pretty interesting.
That's
what you
nice.
what, what
Yeah.
you what you discover. Then I actually expanded that later on for social media people. Instead of make me click, I called it make me like. So
For more engagements.
So I did one for B2B and B2C. So I don't know. We'll just do the same.
Awesome. Well, I'll put all those
It's
in
up to
the.
you.
Yeah, we can. We can put those in the show notes. But those are
sure.
great.
Yeah.
To kind of show.
There's a couple examples. Again, there's a new one I just did, which is actually so for people that are in sales, they don't think about like messaging as much, but I challenge people I created like sales coaching. So let me show you the one matrix I did here. This is actually a new one I did, buyer seller Q&A. Let's do the sales objection matrix. So now we're going to help salespeople. Ready? Now I'm going to put in the same thing. Common objection, and then idea 1 to counteract it, and idea 2 to counteract it.
You have a backup plan in case your first one it doesn't work.
That's right. And then how this works is once it's done, it's going to say choose a pain point and an idea, and I'm going to write an email and a This is actually one I made up, a voice response script for live meeting scenarios. So,
Okay.
so let's just say we pick 1 and 2 up here.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to. I just say, 1, and I'll just pick objection 1, idea 2, just like that.
Okay. So it knows like, hey, they have high upfront costs, offer a phased implementation plan, and a follow-up email. This is great. SDRs are going to love this, and AEs.
Well, again, it's all ideation. Do you agree with it? Use it. Now, to hope this message finds you well, I would get rid of that. That's so cliched. Um, for those people, please don't give me the quick question subject line. Even ChatGPT won't do that. There should be. I think I should create a new one called "Give me alternatives to quick question" on my email subject line. But yeah, and then I gave like emails. I always give like 3 sample email subject lines, and then this crazy idea I had to do a voice response script for live meeting scenarios.
Our
So,
face. Yeah, this is good. So you can kind of just have that, and then eventually maybe even feed that into what we were looking at earlier, like Hey Jen and some of those tools of video video avatars.
well, the funny thing is, there's now like just for sake of ideation here, there's I know there's like automated voicemail scripts, right? That automated voices, right? But you can put something like this now and customize it. Hey, Bill, regarding your issue with upfront costs, and you just type this in as the voicemail, and then you just finish up with give me a call when you get a chance.
Yeah, that's a great use case. Yeah, simple voice instead of the real time, which is a little slow right now. And honestly, I would never trust an
Yeah,
AI right now to talk to
yeah.
any one of my customers without my overseeing or approval.
Just for your viewers right now, I'm going to show you a fun one, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Is I like to showcase. So these are all kind of B2B ish, but the promotion ones are a little fun because there's all. I mean, not to saying we're going to do TV and radio with that topic, but again, I have a story about how they all work together. I even created, that's me with the sunglasses, my AI creative director. Cool. Ask me anything about creative. And that, the promotion planning is good for B2C and offers and things like that. I think for this one, we're going to have a little fun radio, TV, analytics gurus. I'm going to go down to the crazy digital ad crafter, which will give me supposed to be ads for like every digital platform out there. Let's write ads. That's my only prompt there, and I'm just going to type in this, even with the spelling error. But I'm also going to put in an offer here, free demo, um, limited time, just for sake of that, um, and see what happens.
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen is too, with like the creative director, is you have a lot of experience. I've been in this industry for a while. It actually gives you a chance to like really like solidify that into like a chat bot. So my mom was learning AI for her own blogging, and I have a bunch of writing about best practices and stuff. I can just give her a GPT and say, here you go. Of course, I still talk to my mom every day. I'm not talking to my mom off on an AI bot, but it's you can scale your knowledge, and also to places where you know especially like your website, you have a plethora of knowledge that you've written about, and best practices, so you can really just scale yourself.
Yeah. I mean, we always talk about value proposition. I appreciate the kind words. I mean, we're not doing this for the sake of doing it. I mean, it's fun, but it's strategy, right? And it's still about what do companies want. From what you sell is, Paul, we need leads, qualified leads with clues that they have a business problem, and help our salespeople sell better, right? And we have a hard time sometimes, obviously, what do we write about? Again, this is my assistant, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we use that to for anything, whether it's B2B or B2C, and it's just a matter of just having that right frame of mind. Like you saw what we just did, doesn't mean it's the right stuff to use, but it says, oh, here's some words we can use. Oh, I didn't think about that. So but for me, like in my business, we talk about, it's not just the message, but targeting the right people, and reaching the right audiences, and negotiating the right pricing, and testing, like you said. Now we can test pretty easily. You still got to pay for the media, but and you can save on production if you want to test the offer. YouTube's a whole nother story. I know with Sora coming out, I'm sure YouTube's going to go nuts. But people still, use whether freelance video makers, and I know that's changing over time as well. To have, with anything with YouTube, they would say, like, well, it goes back to what we spoke about in the beginning. The first 5 seconds, grab my attention before I skip, right? I mean, you think about TV ads. Actually, let me go back in the day. I'm sorry, I had to bring this up. In radio stations, when my first job at Nutrisystem Weight Loss was franchise, right? We would negotiate a little higher price, and sometimes we didn't, but to be the first spot of a break. Because that was the thing, right? We wanted to grab someone's attention before they went through their car radio. They actually had
Mm-hmm.
buttons, black buttons, press, and to go
Right.
to another station, right? Because I want to hear other music, and then a minute later come back and see if my radio station's back on. So that was a negotiation, and it's still the same thing today. Is everything we're trying to do to grab someone's attention before they go someplace else. So I know what we're getting at.
Those start caps and those end caps on both TV and radio used to be like the the gold spots.
Well, but it's actually a little kind of a funny thing right now because people don't change the station anymore. So I mean, I'm being a little somewhat tongue in cheek here, but the audio would probably, your offers might still be effective, because if I'm doing this on my phone instead of changing the station, I'll just see what I missed on Facebook the last 30 seconds. And then I might, oh, that's interesting. I'll look up. Oh, I got my phone. Let's take a picture of the QR code. Right? Where in the old days, I might just not have my phone and just change the station. So that's another way to look at things. But there's always that issue of ad avoidance, like we mentioned in the beginning here, is what can we do that's where targeting and offers comes in, right? I'm gonna watch the same Liberty Mutual ad. I'm sorry, guys, but how many often can I see that? And I get it, but I'm not going to pay attention because I don't need insurance. But that's a whole nother story. So
yeah. So how have you seen in your experience AI adoption? When you're coming in with your clients talking about AI, when you've seen, working with clients, how they've just adopted it into their own workflow, how you've adopted it into your, company's workflow. What has kind of been the response that you've seen
with the AI?
Mm-hmm.
Every new business meeting I have, I'm going to answer that is, wow, I didn't know it could do that. Or, well, of course, my tools are a little bit different than saying, hey, let's just go to ChatGPT and see what it does versus here's a solution for you and what it does. Like I just showed you. So it's different. So for me, it's a selling tool to say, you really got this going among everything else you do. Like it almost like another way it says to somebody is you take something and you really go deeper to the nth degree. And that's what I would do for any client, really, no matter what it is. But I guess to answer your question is, yeah, there's people that are not sure. So I've had a few calls that just said, here, call Paul and just see what his tools are all about. And this is like, AI is like the demo, right? Can I demo media buying? No. Can I really demo analytics? No. Can I, my call to action, it used to be like, give me a call and let's talk. Now, if I use AI with my tools, it's almost like the call to action's different. Get a demo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense? So, and that's what happened. That's what happened when people would contact me and say, what does this do? Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. So you haven't seen in terms of they're seeing they're seeing new ways of using AI. So have they? I guess have you seen apprehension, excitement? What's kind of been on that? Because we talked about, not using writers as much anymore, not using video editors as much anymore. And we kind of go into these, what's kind of that reception looking like?
No, it's all good because they understand what we're trying to do here is um, manage budgets and spend it wisely. I use that a lot, even with media buying and analytics. It's all about spending money wisely. This is another way to do it. As long as, like I said, everybody agrees with the message, strategy, style, and all that, they're on board. Now, there's still always going to be skeptical people to actually see what it can do. I just got an email today from a prospect and something very, very specific to reach a very specific server monitoring application targeting CIOs, and their own way of speaking. And so I have an assignment to use the tool as a proposal to see what can it do to break through to these people. Give me some examples. We're intrigued, right? And so I'm going to put together that project, and won't take too long. But it's people saying, "Show me." I've seen it. Show me more because my service is complicated. What can we do to break through, right? And that's where the ideation and the prompting comes in. To like one of the GPTs I just put in last week, I got good reviews, was emotion versus logic, right? You can say anything you want, and I told them, like, a lot of people buy on emotion. We like to be logical. We like to, here dot 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 dot, and but sometimes, you know, what's in it? How do you make my job easier? I have stress. I had a meeting with somebody this morning about the same thing. Yeah, you got great stuff here. You provide this, you provide this, but communicate to me about how to deal with my anxiety of running my business, or because I'm not sure what to do, and so that's you can use that and tweak it so that you can test not just the messaging A/B test, but message style, emotion versus logic, for example, and then see
Mm-hmm.
how that message works. I actually just not to be self-serving, but I just did a couple of ebooks this week on my website. It took me. I massage it. It's not perfect. I just massage it. I took. It took me like by the time I got the landing pages, maybe 2 days, right? But I did it for a reason. I didn't get too particular with it, but it was AI within the funnel, and I said one version conversational, the other version authoritative and logical, and I had two versions of the same table of contents, and I wanted to show people here's two different tones, and that's what I did. So the point is people have different ways of buying, but at the end of the day, most people buy through emotion, and just get to me like make my job easier. I'll pay if I could sleep at night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that one of the things that I try to, we talked about earlier, you're not using a writer, you're not using creatives, but at the same time, the amount of content that you're able to create goes up. And what I've seen just in my own work, it's not that I'm not using the same people. I'm just expecting more, right? Like of what they can produce. I'm able to produce more because we know that these tools are available. We know how to use these tools. I think that once people incorporate them into their own workflows and start using it, I think they'll be a lot less scared.
I've already seen that. We've already had results with it. So I think you just have to trust it and let it play out. Like I said, everything gets approved by a client. If they want to make it a little more personal, we'll come back and make it personal, right? And use
Mm-hmm.
different words and phrases and things like that. But to your point, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, people scan. That's another thing that's different from the old days. So I love waking up in the morning, and who remembers this out there? I don't know if they do or not, like the newspaper and the Sunday paper and reading all the baseball stats and box scores. I don't do that anymore, right? Like a lot of people, I'd be lucky if maybe I'm unusual, but like read a whole story on a local newspaper website. You're everything, and of course you got all those ads anyway. But the point though is, and I understand with even my website, which is why I'm working on it again, is I might just put a section called bottom line pages. If you want to read more, read more. But the point though is, you know, relate to me. Tell me what I need to know. Tell me why I should buy you, and everything else will come into play. But focus and like I said, be able to test and just let it, you know, let it run its course based on the messaging that we're giving it with chat. That you may not even know those pain points. Help me do it. Like I said in the beginning, multiple targets, multiple messages, multiple needs, instead of one funnel. Now we have 3 or 4 funnels at the same time because we're have more content for each target audience we have, or or whatever it ends up being. It's just going faster and and more quality because it's personal. So that's really, I mean, think about it. It's, not to sound too cliche, you're saving costs, you're speeding up lead generation, and you're improving conversion rates because it's personal. So those 3 things, is a takeaway.
Yeah. It's only going to get better too over time.
Well, yeah, I mean, like I told somebody this morning, I said, I wonder if we actually need from the government or whatever to say, to disclaim every message with made with AI versus real. I don't know.
That's an interesting question. What role as marketers do we have? Because we've talked about, a world where you can literally have, the AI speaking exactly in the language and what's going to know and resonate. The more data you have about a person, the more you know about them, the more you can alter that message to resonate with them. And there's always been a fine line between marketing and manipulation. What are the ethics and what as marketers do we need to be thinking about as these
Well,
tools get rolled out?
ethics is important, but to answer your question, let me gonna go back to just for the sake of conversation here, and I'll answer your question is there was a situation back in the 80s where there was a TV ad that ran. It only ran once, just once, and people still remember it. If you remember, I think it was 1984 Super Bowl. Was it Apple?
Oh
You
yeah, the
know,
Apple commercial.
right? Everything was robotic and the future, and it was really like scary in a way. But you know what? We knew as an audience, yeah, that's fake. But right? But the message was memorable, and we still remember it because it left an impact with us, even though it was fake, right? And the world has a lot of that, right? Like, oh, that's not real. That's not real. Like Pixar movies, we're okay with fakeness as long as it's depends on your brand and what you want to portray. If the message was solid and it leaves something with me to act on. Now those are extreme places, but we talk about, like you mentioned, is um, do you want to, what's your brand? Do you want to be personable, head of the company, or do you want to just have a creative way to communicate your solutions to a problem that will be impactful and memorable and persuasive, that makes me click, makes me read, makes me convert?
So the ad that you bring up, I remember that. I remember at the end, it's like, why 1984 won't be like 1984. And you started your career in 1984. How can we make sure that, 30 years later, 30 years later, no, is it? Oh, geez. Showing my age, almost 40
40,
years.
40, 40.
Yeah. Yeah. How can we make sure that it's not going to end that way?
Well, it goes back to, you hear this every so often on news programs or whatever about governance. And eventually there's going to have to be some kind of, like I mentioned, maybe tongue in cheek about the made of AI, but um,
Do you think we
if
should have a warrant, like a label?
yeah,
Like,
I mean, I don't think so, but if it becomes too much, and again, we don't want to lose honesty in people either, right? We don't want to think everybody's fake, and I could be talking right now, but it's maybe another voice of mine. Why I don't like my voice or whatever. I mean, I think there's always going to be a balance of human and technology and how to blend that. Everybody can have their own answer to that, but the bottom line, no matter how you look at it, sometimes you can get too creative and then lose the message. And I'll tell you why. Let's go back to the Super Bowl again. When you watch Super Bowl ads, do you remember the product or do you remember the creative? And if you remember the creative and you don't remember the product, I just wasted millions of dollars. Think about it.
yeah.
They just, the super, I mean, the average
I
person.
remember, I remember this
Right?
Darth Vader one where the kid did that. I remember it was a car company. Don't remember which car company.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So the message here is the tools, the platforms, whatever, you can get creative and do these crazy things. At the end of the day, I want to remember who I'm buying from and have that trust. Because at the end of the day, from the beginning of advertising all the way to today, um, we're selling trust. So it's how to weave that into a trustworthy message versus something that's cute, but am I going to convert? I might click, but am I going to convert? Um, Balance both of those things. That's why I said, like, with these ad vendors, oh, your click through rate is going through the roof. Maybe because we have better creative. But if we're not converting, why am I buying you? Maybe it's the
Yeah.
wrong one. Maybe it's a creative ad, but maybe our website is not as engaging. Or who knows what it is, but you have to cover, like you were your former company. You were, you know, it's not about leads, it's about sales. It's not about clicks, it's about engagement. And everything else is fine, but what builds conversion is trust.
Yeah. And I think realness, knowing that, it's not just completely AI generated. I think overuse of AI, especially in marketing, we're definitely seeing that in my LinkedIn and every feed that I have. But I think that you do need to use it as a companion and not just rely so heavily on it.
Right, right. So always think about that, audience. Just I hope whoever's listening, just think about it. Think about it.
Yeah.
It's not about the fancy car you drive. Will it get you there?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is it going to get you to where you're going? So as we end up here, how do you plan on kind of, what fun little research are you doing right now? And how do you see like kind of it evolving over the next couple of years? And what are you excited to see in like GPT-5 and some of the speculation that's out there?
Yeah, well, it's a little fun here. If GPT-5 comes out, which no it does in the summer, or whoever. Do I have to start over with all my fours? All the ones I just did. Do I have to like redo the instructions? Anyway, but
That's a really good point because with these new models, they have prompt drift and like, how your prompts reacted to one model aren't going to necessarily
I
react the same way. So that's a very good point.
right, and it always well, I'm always tweaking it anyway. I always fight it. No, I wanted this way, but anyway, the good thing about fighting with ChatGPT and the other ones is they just say I'm sorry. They don't pout. Um, they just, I mean, the ChatGPT just changed their format yesterday. It looked like, oh, what's this doing here? What? Like, where's that? So they're always like tweaking. I always like feel like even with Google during the pandemic, let's just make changes and do Google Analytics 4. We don't really need to do it, but we have nothing else to do. I feel like it's that way. Like, and make it even harder to use so we can. Why did you even have to do that? Why? But anyway, But
Yeah,
anyway,
GA4 has been
how do
throughout
you
the
make
industry.
how do you make that report? So what exactly is data driven? I mean, it's all data anyway. Data driven, versus. But anyway, that's another podcast. But but the point though um, is what point were we trying to make?
What are you excited about? What are
Oh yeah,
you
the future. Oh yeah, the
looking forward
future.
to?
Right. I think with prompting strategy to like we spoke about the brand voices, automatic. They have the custom instructions, but probably need to really focus. I think it has to learn more. Maybe it'll learn more about even if you like upload stories or content that you've actually written. And I think it could probably do this now is learn my writing style, right? And I think it maybe still needs to be tested. Maybe in the future is okay. It sounds ChatGPT-ish. When we talked about personalization and brand, building that into the message, right? Copywriters won't love that, but I think that's going to happen. You can always do a little bit of it now, but it may learn better by your style, what your preferred writing habits are, so that no matter what you prompt, if you're going to write emails or blogs, you can have more of a style based on, what, you know, how your brand voice is. So I think that's going to happen. And like I said, for the video part of it, the avatars are somehow going to get better, and maybe options for how dynamic you want them to be. I already see some of the tools like I have to put in, like I think it was either, um, Elia or some other tool, Synthesia, where would you like the eyebrows lifted here? That kind of thing, or put the pause in here. I said they actually have eyebrow lifting prompt for those videos, right? I'm waiting for the one where they can have a conversation like a talk show, and I'm talking to an avatar to say, "Good point, Paul. Here's a follow-up question that I prompted, but they're talking to me like a conversation. We don't have that. Almost like I'm talking to you, but you're an avatar, and I gave you the questions to ask, and then based on my answer, you're going to learn how to do a follow-up question that I don't know about, right?
Yeah.
So,
Have you
no,
seen the demos with Grok and the speed at that? It's Grok, the chip maker, not Twitter's AI or
no.
X's AI, but it's instant conversation. They interrupt them. They have instant feedback. It's the latency is the biggest piece on that, but yeah, it's coming. The AI companions and but going back, like I have a GPT that's my personal coach. I'm having a difficult conversation. It has my entire personality profile baked into it and everything about it, so that it can help me to see my blind side, see what are different approaches I can take to maybe um, how I'm approaching this situation. So I think is all in all, the AI is just going to get to know you, your business, what you're trying to do much better.
Yeah. I actually built a chat again. Just kind of my brain was you can personalize it. It's actually not a public one. It's just called my own personal persona.
Mm-hmm.
And I used some templates and tweaked the custom instructions for a client to fill in. And I also had another personal persona sheet. How do you want everything styled? What do you want to include? What do you want to disclude? What kind of phrases do you like to say? What kind of style? And if you can post that once and then, share that with the other GPTs, you're pretty close to personalizing something in
Mm-hmm.
a way. But it's almost like here's your company's persona. Now you're the marketer. Now you get your own individual GPT versus your CEO because he reads things differently. You can do all that, right? It's just a matter of just doing it, right?
Yeah, you're
But
absolutely right. Like how, like for you may like bullet points versus narrative, and everyone can have the same information given back to them the way that they want it. Back to you talking to me, that doesn't just go for marketing, but when you're giving a presentation at work, that's marketing. You're marketing now to either get your project approved and move it forward, or giving a summary like what you did to say it was worth the resources we put towards it.
right.
But I do see a world where instead of that people become managers of agents, where they are working on their behalf and guiding them. I still think that you AI by itself, and they've done this with gaming too. AI by itself, humans by themselves, and AI and humans, and on all scenarios, AI and humans working together always wins.
Just a sidebar again, when the writers in Hollywood went on strike,
Yeah.
they ain't seen nothing yet. So, I mean,
Yeah, I think they're
I know there's how to blend that in. That's a whole nother story, And write me I need a 1 hour television script. Here are the character personas. Here's the plot line. Give me some ideas of how to write a new show for whatever's coming up, right? I'm sure that's the future, or maybe somewhat present as well. But the GPTs only goes so much and it stops. But can it write? Give me a 20-page document in one prompt. I don't think it does that yet. So,
well, but this is where it's going. And I think that I try to tell, is don't focus on what you did do. Like, for instance, as a writer, I can guarantee you, I go to Hollywood, every single writer has their pet project of the thing they really want to write, not the show that they're doing. Now, with the assistance of an AI tool, with Sora, they could even, pitch an entire, pilot without anyone else. And I think those are the skills, those are the things that, that people should be looking at, how they can now up level what they've really wanted to do.
oh my God, I could just realize I created some fun personal ones called My Funny Buddy is one. It's like a comedian. And I bet I can put in some information links and say, like, make pretend I'm Jimmy Kimmel and write up my monologue covering these 4 topics of the day and make them funny. Right?
Yeah. I mean, this is, yeah. They still think that ChatGPT. I've had it try to run 2 jokes because I actually have a TikTok channel where I do animations over stand-up skits, and I've tried to also get it to create its own original. It's still not that funny. But excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Paul.
Sure.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, and maybe we'll see where we're at again here in about another year and see how fast this has really changed marketing.